The African political landscape has again dominated the news after a fireworks session that left millions on the continent amazed. The argument started as a raging South African parliamentary debate and rapidly escalated into a theatrics-filled series of events that ended with opposition leader Julius Malema being manhandled out of parliament. But the true shock came later when Burkina Faso's young and rebellious president Ibrahim Traoré gave a bold and biting statement that allegedly surprised even South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. The sudden global reaction turned what was first a local scandal into a continent-wide discourse on leadership, protest, and the changing face of African politics. In order to grasp the significance of Julius Malema's decision, we must examine what precisely transpired, why it is important, and how it could transform the democratic future of Africa. For years, Julius Malema has been South Africa's most divisive figure. As president of the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, he has built a career attacking South Africa's governing African National Congress, ANC, and its leadership, particularly President Ramaphosa. Renowned for his incendiary oratory and relentless condemnation of government corruption and economic inequality, Malema has developed a devoted following among South Africans disenchanted with the status quo. His exhortations for radical economic transformation, land reform, and political accountability have earned him both fierce admiration and profound resentment. Conversely, Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old Burkinabe military leader who took power in 2022, is an emerging star in African politics. Perceived by many as a symbol of opposition to neo-colonial intervention, especially from France, Traoré has become popular among Africans weary of outside interference and domestic lethargy. His blunt style of leadership and his unabashed advocacy for sovereignty have resonated with younger generations. While his ascension through a coup d'état has attracted global criticism, many Africans appreciate his forthrightness and the directness with which he speaks, even when it involves criticizing fellow leaders. The confrontation was ignited when Malema used a session of parliament to challenge the foreign policy of the South African government, specifically its alleged cooperation with Western interests in contradiction of Pan-African solidarity. His language was fierce and uncompromising, blaming Ramaphosa's government for betraying the cause of African unity. Tensions rose rapidly. Ruling party members shouted him down, and the parliament speaker instructed that Malema be removed. This was followed by a moment that few will ever forget. Security staff rushed into the chamber and forcefully took Malema out while he struggled. The incident was recorded on camera and immediately went viral on social media. To Malema's loyalists, the video symbolized more than a breach of decorum. In their view, it was a deliberate campaign to silence opposition and a direct assault on a voice that represented the voiceless. The pictures of him being manhandled and hauled out of parliament became a compelling symbol of government overreach and political oppression. Some South Africans celebrated the maintenance of parliamentary order, but for others, the moment confirmed growing fears that democratic space in South Africa is contracting. The real shock, however, came later when Ibrahim Traoré reacted with an uncensored condemnation. In a public address shared on his official social media platforms, Traoré denounced the treatment of Malema as shameful and un-African. He accused Ramaphosa of turning parliament into a stage for censorship instead of debate. Traoré insisted that African leaders must be strong enough to take criticism and that silencing opposition only divides the continent's common future. His words were blunt and sharp. If African unity is to have any meaning, he explained, it must be founded on respect for one another, even in disagreement. Traoré's intervention sent shockwaves through the African political establishment. Some applauded him for standing up for Malema and defending free expression, while others questioned his moral right to lecture on democracy given his own rise to power through a military coup. Despite the divided opinions, his message resonated. It prompted political observers, commentators, and citizens to take a closer look at the growing disillusionment with aging leadership across the continent. His timing could not have been more apt. Across Africa, citizens are making themselves heard in demanding genuine change. The photograph of Malema being thrown out of parliament became symbolic of something far greater, the widening gap between those in power and the populations demanding transparency, dignity, and progress. Ramaphosa, on the other hand, spoke little. His office released a brief statement defending Parliament's processes, explaining that all members are obligated to honor the Speaker's authority and the rules of the House. But that did little to quell the backlash. Some interpreted his silence amid Traoré's comments as weakness, while others viewed it as calculated restraint to avoid escalating an already volatile situation. This event has now become far bigger than a showdown between two politicians. It has ignited a wider debate throughout Africa regarding the type of leadership, the value of dissent, and the future of democratic voice. On one hand, it highlights how fragmented African political systems continue to be, often divided along generational, ideological, or colonial lines. On the other, it has unleashed a much-needed discussion on what it truly means to be a democratic society. Are we building spaces that invite protest and dissent? Or are we heading toward intolerance disguised as order and procedure? In the future, there are several possibilities. Ramaphosa might respond positively to Traoré's criticism, sparking a continent-wide debate on democratic values and institutional reform. Or he may choose to remain aloof from the controversy and let the divide deepen. Meanwhile, Traoré's audacity may inspire a new generation of leaders to stand up against both foreign and domestic constraints. Yet his critics will continue to challenge his legitimacy, emphasizing the irony of a military ruler preaching democratic ideals. Nevertheless, no one can deny that his message has struck a chord. At the center of this whirlwind lies a profound question: what does Africa need from its leadership today? Do we want leaders who are polished, diplomatic, and by the book, or passionate, raw voices who challenge the status quo and compel us to have uncomfortable but necessary conversations? Do we desire order at the expense of freedom, or room for protest, disruption, and transformation? These are not simple questions, but they are necessary ones. What is clear is that Africa is on the move. Its citizens are better educated, more connected, and more determined to hold those in power accountable. The tactics of intimidating critics and silencing dissent are no longer foolproof. The days of quiet obedience are being replaced by a new era, one defined by fearless, persistent demands for justice, equality, and leadership that listens.